I'm Chaya. For those of you who are watching this video and already know me, I don't need to give much of an introduction. But for those of you who are watching me for the first time, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. As I just said, my name is Chaya and I've been associated with the hospitality industry for the past 30 plus years. And I've spent more than a couple of decades of this time teaching and training people various subjects, mostly related with the service industry. During these difficult times when we are sitting at home and wondering what to do, I thought I'll just come up with a short video which I'd like to share with all of you. And since we're talking about social distancing, space between people, I said why not start with a topic called Proxemics. And Proxemics is one of the main components of interpersonal non-verbal communication. We unconsciously and consciously use this every day in our lives, the way we organize ourselves, the way we talk to people, the way we keep our things in our office, the way we arrange our house, space. That is what we're talking about when we talk about Proxemics. To give you a little bit of a background about Proxemics, the word Proxemics was coined by Edward Hall not too long back. It was as early as 1963 when he first came up with the use of this word Proxemics. Space between people when they talk, when they interact, it is the backbone of our communication. There are a lot of other things that come into play when we are communicating with each other, and probably this is a time when I could mention that most of us use the term communication pretty much loosely. We are most of the time talking about verbal communication and language skills when we write our CVs and put it on our resume that I have excellent communication skills. Somewhere down the line, it has become communication. The word communication has become one with language skills. So here I am to tell you that communication has many components, and the biggest component of communication is definitely non-verbal skills. So in that non-verbal skills, why have I chosen Proxemics today to talk about is because the thought process actually came into my head because a friend of mine asked me recently, once the lockdown started and people were talking about social distancing, he said, Chaya, why are we calling it social distancing? Why can't we just call it distance between two people, a personal distance? I smiled to myself and the first thing that came up to me was, yes, Proxemics. So according to Hall and the science of Proxemics, human space, interpersonal communication is divided into 4 major zones. And the first zone, and these zones are actually calculated on the distance between people when they are communicating with each other. So when we talk about the first zone, it is what we call as the intimate zone. And in this intimate zone, the space between two people is between 0 to 2 feet, which is very, very close. And I can ask you, how many people do we allow to enter that intimate zone of ours? We probably can count it on one hand, 5 fingers, or for some of us maybe it could go beyond that. How many people would we allow to enter that intimate zone and even put a hand on our shoulder or touch us? How many people would be comfortable with just going and giving a hug to somebody? So that is why, as the name suggests, it is the intimate zone. When we move a little further, when we are moving into a workspace, whichever business we are in, when we are talking to each other, we move into what we call as the personal space. Now this personal space is between 2 to 4 feet. It's usually 2 feet because irrespective of the height of a person, when you're talking to a person one-on-one, the distance is not more than 2 feet. When you look into somebody's eyes and you're able to hear them and they're able to hear you, for us to be clear, we need not be loud to be able to communicate and for the other person to see our body language and most importantly, look at our facial expressions. The personal zone is probably a space where we spend most time with. Even today when we talk about when we're doing let's say this video you're watching. The distance, of course, you're sitting in some other part of the world and watching me. But if I were to be doing this in a classroom, then what would happen? That is when we would be moving into a social zone, which is the third zone of proxemics. Social zone, as the name suggests, is for beyond 3 or 6 people. The space that we maintain between each other in order to communicate effectively, in order for the other person to know us, for us to have an eye contact with people, for them to watch our body language. This social zone is anywhere between 4 to 6 feet distance between each other. So say for example, I'm standing in an office and briefing my team, and they would usually be standing in front of me either in a semicircle or maybe in a straight line. And we may not measure it, but unconsciously and subconsciously the human body sets itself in a particular position. And that position for maximum effectiveness is social zone, where we are actually maintaining a 4 to 6 feet distance between people. That way what happens is, I'm able to see everybody. You're able to see me, I'm able to see all of you and talk to you effectively. Now comes the last zone, or the fourth zone that we talk about, and it's called the public zone. And this public zone is where we find ourselves probably very less, and the distance here we're talking about is 12 to almost 18 feet sometimes. A very good example of this would be, how many of us have stood on a stage and performed? How many of us have been lecturers, let's say for example? We are standing on a podium and addressing students, and probably the last bench from us would be easily 12 to 18 feet from us. Another very great example would be a politician or your local leader standing on a dais and addressing people. They could be a group small enough of 100 people, or it could be 5,000 people. Now you know why you have these large TV screens at different places, so that the last guy actually can also see and hear what this person is saying. 90% of the time he's not even looking at me standing on the dais. He's looking at a screen because he needs that 6 to 8 feet distance to be able to understand properly what the person is saying. So just to do a quick recap about the 4 zones as per Proxemics, we talk about the intimate zone, 0 to 2 feet. We talk about the personal zone, which is 2 to 4 feet. We are talking about the social zone, which is 6 to 8 feet. And finally, the public zone, which can go up to 12 to 18 feet. So now, with a very small reference to what we are going through now, we are calling it social distancing because we want a minimum of 4 to 6 feet distance between each other. When you go to a supermarket, when you go to a shop today, we have these little circles or boxes made so that you can stand within that, and in an approximate way, the next box will be about 4 to 5 feet away from you. So that is the correlation between proxemics and how we use space and how effectively it can be used to manage ourselves, our space. So that's my little take on proxemics, and also why we are practicing social distancing nowadays and not calling it personal distancing, because at home we are anyway together. If you have a family with you, you're all together, you're inside that personal space. But when I move out, when I'm in midst of the society, I'm expected to maintain that social distance. So thank you for watching, and do leave your comments after this video, and I'd love to hear from you as to what other topics you might want me to talk about in the next, I don't know how many weeks. Thank you.